It begins with a cat. Not just any cat, but one whose fur hides the oldest map ever made. A map not drawn by human hands, but stitched by the silent threads of the cosmos itself. If you've ever looked into the night sky and felt that faint ache in your chest, that quiet longing for somewhere you've never been, perhaps this story is for you. Because somewhere out there, beneath the slow turning of galaxies, a small black cat walks, carrying the universe on its back. It was late autumn in a quiet fishing village on the edge of the sea. The air was cold enough to sharpen the senses, but not enough to bite. A soft mist hung over the cobblestone streets, and the distant lighthouse, long abandoned, stood as a pale silhouette against the silver wash of moonlight. Elias, an old astronomer with hair like sea foam and eyes clouded from years of studying distant lights, sat in his small, warm home. His table was covered in star charts, their edges curled from age and countless nights of patient study. Tonight, he had been waiting for something rare, a meteor shower that only appeared once every 70 years. He had seen it once as a child, and the memory of those streaks of fire across the darkness had followed him ever since, a ghost of a brighter time. The pendulum clock in the corner swung steadily, each tick a small, rhythmic heartbeat against the silence. It was the only constant in a life dedicated to observing the ever-changing, unimaginable scale of the universe. The scent of ink and old paper filled the room, a perfume of knowledge and ancient wonder. Then came the sound, a soft scratching at the door, not frantic, not hesitant, just purposeful. It was a sound that seemed to fit the quiet of the night, a tiny disruption that felt both expected and impossible. When Elias opened the door, the cold air came first, carrying with it the faint scent of the sea. Then, from the shadows, a small black cat stepped inside without invitation, its paws soundless against the wooden floor. It was the deepest black Elias had ever seen, a black that seemed to absorb the dim light rather than reflect it.
The cat leapt gracefully onto the table, where Elias kept his charts, curling into a perfect circle among the scattered papers. It settled with an air of complete and total ownership. And under the shifting glow of the oil lamp, Elias saw something that made him lean closer, his breath catching in his throat. The patterns in the cat's fur were not random. They formed constellations, precise, delicate, and impossibly detailed. Orion's belt glimmered faintly on its shoulder, the curve of Scorpius traced along its spine, and further still, shapes Elias had never charted. His decades of work had been dedicated to mapping the sky, and yet here, on the side of a small, ordinary cat, were stars and nebulae he had never, ever seen. It was a map of the universe, but not a static one. As the lamp flickered, the constellations seemed to move, tiny galaxies spinning, stars blooming, fading, shifting in a silent cosmic dance. Elias blinked, then blinked again. The images remained. He slowly reached for his magnifying glass, his hand trembling slightly. Through the lens, the detail was breathtaking. He could see individual stars, their light a microscopic pinpoint of pulsing energy. He could see the faint dust clouds of nebulae, their colors a deep, luminous violet and crimson. It was as if he was looking through a telescope at a living, breathing tapestry of the night sky, compressed into the body of this small creature. The cat's tail flicked once slowly, as if acknowledging that Elias had noticed. Its eyes of molten gold met his, unblinking, holding a depth that seemed to span light years. In that gaze, Elias felt a certainty he had never felt before. This was no ordinary animal. This was something ancient, something else.
Elias leaned forward, eyes fixed on the living tapestry and the cat's fur. He reached out a trembling hand, careful not to touch, tracing the air above a spiral galaxy glowing faintly near its flank. It shifted under his gaze, not like an illusion, but as if it were truly alive, a projection of something far away. It dawned on him that this was no map of the current night sky. The stars in the cat's fur were in motion, not just across space, but across time. He watched a bright star on its chest begin to dim, its light fading over the course of what felt like minutes, though he knew it would take millennia in real time. Another star near its belly seemed to bloom from nothing, a quiet supernova exploding in miniature. He watched as two galaxies, spiraling gently, began to merge, their brilliant centers collapsing into one another in a slow, beautiful catastrophe. This map showed the past, present, and future of the cosmos all at once. He spent the night watching, sketching, trying to record the patterns, but each time he looked back, they had changed. His charcoal sketches, meant to capture a moment, were instantly rendered obsolete. He began to realize that any attempt to trap this map on paper would be pointless. It was not a picture. It was a living, breathing atlas of the cosmos, constantly updating itself, constantly in motion. And for reasons Elias could not yet understand, it had chosen to show itself to him. As the dawn began to break, a soft, pale gray light seeping through the window, the constellations on the cat's fur faded to a soft charcoal black, indistinguishable from the rest of its coat. The cat yawned, a silent, graceful stretch, and then slipped off the table and out of the room. It was gone.
The next day was a blur for Elias. He moved through his routine with a mind that was a million light years away. He fed the fire, ate a simple meal, and tended to his small garden. But his gaze kept drifting to the empty spot on the table where the cat had been. He kept feeling the phantom sensation of the hum, the silent song of the universe that the cat's presence had brought. He looked at his star charts, but they seemed dusty and inadequate, like a child's drawing of a ship compared to the real, churning ocean. The stars he had spent his life charting now felt like they were just a single, still photograph in a vast, moving film. The next night, Elias didn't wait for the cat to come to him. He left his lantern burning low and his charts scattered across the table, and sat in the darkness with his coat draped over his shoulders. He didn't know why, but he felt an invisible thread connecting him to the creature, a quiet understanding. The air outside was crisp, the kind of cold that quietly seeps into your fingertips if you stay still for too long. The sea continued its slow, steady work against the shore. Just before midnight, there it was again, that sound at the door. 3 soft scratches. A pause, then one more. Elias opened it, and the black cat stepped in as though it had been expected. Its golden eyes caught the lamplight, holding it the way a calm sea holds the moon's reflection. This time, it didn't settle on the table. It walked to the far corner of the room, glanced back once to make sure Elias was following, and slipped outside into the night. It was an invitation, a silent, non-negotiable command. Elias didn't hesitate. He simply pulled on his boots, took his lantern, and followed.
They walked together through the narrow streets of the village. The cobblestones glistened faintly from the earlier mist, and the smell of salt carried on the wind. Every so often, the cat would glance over its shoulder
as though making sure Elias kept pace. They passed the empty harbor, where the masts of fishing boats swayed in slow arcs against the stars, and climbed the path toward the old lighthouse. It had stood dark for decades, its great lantern long shattered by storms. Inside, dust hung in the air, catching what little light leaked through the broken glass. The spiral staircase wound upward like the shell of some forgotten sea creature, its metal railing rusted and cold to the touch. The cat's paws made no sound as it ascended. Elias followed, his hand brushing the rusted railing for balance. Each step echoed in the confined space, the only sound apart from the cat's silent movement and his own steady breathing. At the top, the cat stopped before the wide, broken window. Beyond it, the sea stretched out under a moon that looked thin and distant. The wind howled through the shattered glass, a lonely, mournful sound. And then the change began. The patterns in the cat's fur shifted again, faster this time. The familiar constellations slid away, replaced by that strange cluster Elias had never charted. The stars grew brighter, closer, until it seemed they were no longer part of the cat at all, but hanging just beyond the window. The air shimmered. The sound of waves faded until only a deep, resonant hum remained. A sound Elias felt more than heard. It resonated in his bones, a low, thrumming vibration that was both comforting and immense. And beyond the window pane, the sea was gone. In its place was the vast, endless black of space, scattered with 1,000 unfamiliar suns.
For a moment, Elias did nothing. He simply stared, heart steady but slow, at the impossible vision before him. The wind no longer touched his face. The scent of salt was gone. He reached out toward the broken frame, half expecting to touch cold glass, but his fingers met air that felt different, denser, cooler. He took a hesitant breath. The air smelled of nothing, yet it felt cleaner than any air he had ever known. The cat stepped forward, slipping through as if the glass had never existed. Elias hesitated only a second before following. He stepped over the threshold, and the instant he crossed, the ground beneath his boots felt unreal, not solid in the way wood or stone is solid, but steady nonetheless. He looked down and saw nothing but blackness beneath his feet, deep and transparent, and within it, whole galaxies turning slowly like bioluminescent creatures under frozen water. Above them stretched a void so vast it felt like standing inside the breath of some sleeping giant. It was a silence that contained everything, a quiet so complete it felt deafening. The cat moved ahead, each step deliberate, as though following a path invisible to human eyes. Elias followed, his lantern still in hand, though here its light seemed strangely muted, its yellow glow swallowed by the infinite dark. There was no sound except a faint hum, a vibration that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. At some point, minutes, hours, perhaps days later, they approached a faint glow in the distance. It was not a star, but something softer, more like the pale glimmer of moonlight through fog. As they drew closer, Elias saw her. She sat cross-legged on the black surface, her robes pooling around her like liquid night. The stars in the fabric were dim, their light barely alive, like memories of constellations long gone. Her face was lined, not with the years of a single life, but with the weight of centuries. Her eyes, when they lifted to meet his, seemed bottomless, holding the depth and complexity of 1,000 different stories. "I see you've met the keeper," she said, her voice as even and calm as the hum around them. Elias glanced at the cat, now sitting neatly between them, tail wrapped around its paws. "The keeper?" Elias asked, his voice a faint whisper in the silent place. "The cartographer of the cosmos," she said. "It carries the living record of all that is, all that was, and all that will be.
every movement of every star, every birth, every death, every place that has ever existed. Elias tried to understand, why me? Why show me this? She tilted her head slightly as though weighing the question. Because there is a place missing from every human map, a place you have not yet found in your sky. The Keeper knows it, and it has chosen to guide you there. Elias looked again at the cat. In its fur, the stars shifted once more, forming that same strange cluster. Now it was larger, sharper, and brighter than ever. The woman's gaze softened. You will see it, but remember this. The Keeper does not take you to places you want to go, only to places you are meant to go, to places your heart already knows, even if your mind has forgotten.
The cat leapt into Elias's lap, its fur warm and almost pulsing under his hand. The stars on its side rippled outward, and a new image emerged. It was no longer a map of stars, but a vision of pure, unimaginable space. A vast ocean, but not made of water. Waves of pure starlight rolled endlessly, each crest dissolving into glittering spray that faded into the darkness. At the center of this sea was a single, perfect sphere of darkness. It absorbed the light entirely, leaving no reflection, no outline, only absence. It was a hole in the universe, an empty canvas that was somehow more profound than all the brilliant stars around it. The woman's voice was quiet, almost reverent. That, she said, is the first star, or rather, the place where it once burned, the oldest thing in the universe, the beginning of every story, including yours, the place you have been looking for your entire life without ever knowing its name. Elias felt a deep stillness then, not fear, not wonder, but something heavier, as though he were being shown not a discovery, but a memory, a deep-seated ancestral memory of a beginning that had been erased from the waking world. The cat's gaze locked onto his, and for a moment, the space around them felt like it was holding its breath.
Elias awoke, or thought he did, in his chair by the window. The oil lamp had burned low. The clock ticked softly in the corner, and outside the sea whispered against the shore. The room smelled of old paper and wood smoke. The cat was gone. For a moment, he almost believed it had been a dream. A beautiful, impossible dream woven by a tired mind. But as his senses returned to him, he felt the chill of the morning air on his skin, and the memory of the profound hum still resonated in his bones. He stood and walked to the table where his charts lay scattered. There, nestled amongst them, was a single black whisker, its tip dusted with something faintly luminous. It was a token, a quiet, physical proof that his mind had not invented the journey. He stepped outside into the night air. The familiar constellations hung over the horizon. But there, just above the edge of the sea, was a small, faint cluster of stars he had never seen before, exactly where the cat's map had shown it. He knew then that he would spend the rest of his life looking for that place, not to find it again, but to remember it. To remember the stillness, the quiet, and the beautiful, terrible emptiness where everything began.
Some say the Keeper still walks among us. Maybe it curls at the foot of your bed, a silent, perfect shadow that watches you as you sleep. Maybe it waits at the edge of the street lamp's glow when you walk home at night, its molten eyes reflecting 1,000 suns you've never seen. Maybe it's already traced your place in the map. Maybe it has found you because it knows that, deep down, you've been looking for it your entire life. But if you want to know where your path in the stars truly leads, If you want to remember the place where it all began, the place that all of the stars secretly miss, you might want to stay close. You might want to listen for the soft scratching at your door.
The universe is a quiet, secret place, and the keeper knows all its secrets. It knows the beginning and the end. It knows the path you will take and the place you are meant to go. It is always watching. It is always waiting. Its map is always moving. And once it has chosen you, there is no turning back. You have seen its light. You have felt its hum. So if you wish to see the secrets again, and to follow the path that has been waiting for you since the beginning of time, there is only one thing left to do. Subscribe before the keeper decides to choose someone else.